From Wall Street to Main Street, this is LALATE.
It's a major night here on Evenings LALATE as the Consumer Price Index for the month of November is released. And this is what we were watching. We were expecting and were predicting as part of the Purple Power family that the CPI was going to be higher in the month of November than the month of October. It was. You got it right, Purple Power. Then we were predicting that the Consumer Price Index was going to be about a 7% year-to-date higher compared to the prior November. You got it right as well. That's why you need to get all these incredible stimulus checks, because the cost of living is still too high. $300,000 stimulus checks heat up tonight's recording. Fast stimulus and 18 months of stimulus checks with about 5 checks and $3,000 a month heat up tonight's broadcast. But what got cheaper in the latest CPI number tonight? We'll go over the items that did decrease with inflation and the other items that are still going up. Wall Street reacted to the news very compellingly. The markets were up 700 points initially, then went negative, and then ended the day up 100 points. The White House reacted to the news. I'll have Joe Biden's comments. But the major question tonight is what's happening with travel and leisure. Suddenly cooling off, is that going to be the solution for inflation? One of the big problems tonight in that CPI was housing. Housing is 30% of inflation, and housing was the largest gain of the items month to month. Again, big problem. In tonight's recording, we'll go over all those incredible details, and of course, your big stimulus checks. $300,000 of stimulus checks. Law since the month of March. Viewers have been getting paid in March. You need to pounce to get these incredible checks. 18 months of stimulus checks, 5 checks per month, $3,000 a month. Heat up tonight's broadcast. We're going to go over all these incredible checks for you in tonight's show. Plus, something brand new tonight. I'll be showing you where I believe would be the solution to get that inflation down. It's the breaking news across the board on tonight's Evenings LA. It's a big night and a big week. Tomorrow, Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve meet. They're likely to do a 50 basis point increase. And then tomorrow is the 10th trading day of the month of December. That's when the Santa Claus rally is supposed to start. Will it start? All the latest breaking news on America's most watched show for financial news in prime time. It's Evenings. And tonight is the major show we were all awaiting in a big week that's just getting underway. Breaking news and everything you need to know about you and your money on a big show tonight from the shores of Santa Monica, California. Heats up on a big evening starting right now. Evening, everybody. It's a big night on Evenings LALATE. As the Consumer Price Index number for the month of November is released, this is the consumers and their inflation, your cost of goods, and it was released in advance of tomorrow's two-day meeting for the Federal Reserve, featured on this channel as well, and in advance of Thursday's major unemployment number, and also in advance of tomorrow's start of the Santa Claus rally, potentially. Big stimulus are needed, and they're available everywhere, and over this incredible broadcast, we're going to go over these huge stimulus checks. Viewers have been getting these stimulus checks since March. How do you get them? You go under the video, become a member, watch this incredible broadcast, and apply for the stimulus checks in the newsletter. I'll show you how it works, and I'll show you how people are getting tens of thousands of dollars with these incredible stimulus checks. And tonight's broadcast from the shores of Santa Monica, California. Good evening. We start with the major breaking news tonight as the Consumer Price Index for the month of November is released. And congratulations, Purple Power, you got it very right. This week, we were asking the viewers of this channel, where do you believe the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, for the month of November will be when it's released today? Month to month, you said it was going to go up about a 0.1, 0.2, 0.3%. You got it right. Year to date, it started a year ago tonight at 8% inflation this U.S. economy. Jay Powell says he wanted to get to 2%. You said it was going to be about a 7% something. Well, you got that right as well. Here you go. The breaking news tonight is that the Consumer Price Index, which gauges the goods that you buy, came in at a 0.1% rise compared to the prior month. That's higher inflation. And 7.1% rise compared to November 2021. This is a little bit softer than Wall Street expected, but not substantially softer. Wall Street was looking for a 7.3 year to date. 7.1 was the actual. And they were looking at a 0.3 rise per month. That came in at 0.1. So not much of a beat across the board. That is exactly as you had predicted. That tees up tomorrow's breaking news on this channel, as Jay Powell is likely to say at the Federal Reserve December FOMC meeting, a 50 basis point increase for interest rates. Now, that was the headline number, month to month and year to date. But when you jump into the components of that CPI, there was a lot of surprises across the board. What got cheaper and what got more expensive in less than 30 days? A month ago, only 3 items got cheaper. They were used cars, medical, and they were gasoline. They weren't down a lot. They were down 0.2, 0.3 across the board. Tonight, they were down a lot, and there was actually a few more items down. Major appliances down 1% in 1 month, and this is year-to-date numbers. Used cars down 3.3%. See, now it's growing a little bit more. Computers and home assistance items down 4.4%, and beef and veal down about 5.2%. Car rentals, which have been hideously high, nearly up 200%, 300% in 1 year, are down 6% year to date. Televisions down 17%, and smartphones, which have been up a lot, down 23.4%. Inflation peaked or inflation not peaked? Wall Street's not known for its command of the English language. These are people who went to school for understanding of numbers, and their English language skills are sometimes not as good. What have they been saying about inflation peaked or not peaked? First, let's understand what the word peaked means. Peaked means it would be a negative number. Imagine you're on a road, you're going up a street, and it has a hill. And at the end of the hill, you suddenly go downhill. As you go downhill, you're decelerating, sort of like a plane coming into land at an airport. You're decelerating. It's negative numbers. Or the stairs in your house, you're going down. It's a negative number. If inflation had peaked, these numbers tonight would all be negative. They're not. The month-to-month number headline is positive. The year-to-date number is up 7%. Jay Powell wants inflation at 2%, so you need a negative number to get this all the way down to 2%. What's important to understand is that the negative numbers were not there in most of the component parts. And they were not only not negative, folks, they were showing that inflation absolutely has not peaked. Let's go into some of those items that were not cheaper in tonight's CPI report. Eggs went up 49% compared to the prior year in the latest CPI number tonight. Airfare up 36%, butter and margarine 34% up. Public transportation up 23%, and a head of lettuce, which I talked about 2 days ago on this channel, was a whopping $3 here in Los Angeles, which I'm not going to pay for, was up 20% in the latest CPI. Cereal and baked goods, 16%, and pet food, like Mitch's Pet Lobster, up 15.7%. Utilities, which is a big issue for stimulus, up 15%, and milk up 15% as well. Health insurance actually went higher this month after it was negative last month, and electricity is going higher, especially in the holiday season, up 14%. What was the reaction to this? So now this was the story that I knew was going to be the major question mark for today. Would the markets react the correct way or the wrong way? Let's look and see what the market's reaction to the news was. Initially, when that CPI was released, the markets traded up 700 points through the roof. Then, this was fascinating. Suddenly the markets went the other direction and were down. Suddenly someone had a reality check to realize this is not inflation peaking, number one. Number two, Jay Powell needs to get inflation to 2%. It was 8% a year ago. It's at 7.1% tonight. He hasn't even gotten down into the sixes yet. He needs to go to 2%. So suddenly they realized, why are we celebrating? And suddenly they realized that Jay Powell is going to stay his course for a while. Here are some of the reaction to the news initially. Let me go over the comments and then go over my reaction to theirs as well. Jim Cramer at CNBC, who many people say I'm the next Jim Cramer. I appreciate those compliments every day. He says, this is a remarkable number. Remarkable? I disagree. It was a very predictable number. We all knew it was going to be a 7% inflation. Then we also had Robert Frick, corporate economist with Navy Federal Credit Union. He said inflation's cooling. That's a correct adverb or adjective. Inflation is cooling. It just hasn't peaked. But here came the other quotes that weren't actually accurate, in my opinion. Came the quote from capital economics economist Paul Ashcroft. Stick a fork in it, inflation is done. Hogwash. It's ridiculous. Inflation is not done if milk and eggs are up 15% compared to the prior year. If items are up 30, 40% in the latest CPI number, where's inflation done? No, that analysis is overdone. Stick a fork in it. And that's why you need to get a stimulus check, because it's costing more to live on a regular basis. And later in this recording, we'll go over where this inflation is heading. And tonight, I have something brand new for you. I'm going to show you how Jay Powell can solve inflation. And we're going to do it together. And this is a critical part of this channel because you'll understand why inflation is not going down, because a certain item is not fixed. Let's look at those incredible stimulus checks. They are everywhere. They became law in the month of March, and these incredible stimulus checks are huge. You need to pounce to get them. And they're $300,000 of stimulus checks. Viewers have been getting them paid in their wallets since the month of March. I'll show you how to get paid tonight. 18 months of stimulus checks on average, 5 stimulus checks per month on average, $3,000 of stimulus checks on average per month. They're everywhere. And these incredible stimulus checks are needed. Why? Because that recession is less than 30 days away. Number two, because inflation is not going away. And number three, the housing market is not any particular better across the board. These incredible stimulus checks are beautiful. Fast stimulus paying out in less than 48 hours in some cases. Get these incredible stimulus checks. I'm going to walk you through these stimulus checks one at a time. What do? Step one, you watch this entire broadcast. Step two, you go into the video, join the channel, become a member. And step three, apply for the stimulus checks in the newsletter. Where do I apply for the stimulus checks? In the newsletter. Where do I apply for the stimulus checks? In the newsletter. I'm going to show you how you do this in just a second, but let's go back into the breaking news across the board that we're dealing with tonight. The reaction to the news initially for that CPI was hysterical when Joe Biden came out and celebrated the consumer price index number released tonight. Confusing? It is very confusing, because why? Joseph Biden was the same guy who earlier this year said the CPI is a horrible metric. Earlier this year, Joe Biden slammed the CPI, saying it's a bad metric because it's a month delayed. Well, it is a month delayed, but that doesn't make it bad. Tonight, he celebrated the same metric. Typical politician. The CPI was his celebration, and he said that the U.S. is producing a lower inflationary rate than other countries. That's actually correct. Now, here is where it gets really interesting. As that CPI was released today, the markets traded up 700 points. Why? They were celebrating that inflation had cooled. Then, when they looked at the components and they realized, no, inflation has not peaked, they realized inflation was 7%, that Jay Powell needs to get it to 2%. He's been doing this for a year, and he hasn't even moved it 1 percentage point. They realized that Jay Powell has 2 more years of interest rate spikes, and they don't want to hear that. That's not particularly good news, and you don't want to hear that either. 2 more years of interest rate spikes is not particularly good news. Now, is there a silver lining in all this? It is, coming from Travel and Leisure. Travel and Leisure was featured in the CPI today, and it showed that the number pulled down about 5%. But more importantly, JetBlue told us today that it believes the demand for travel and airlines has really softened very quickly. They say since the summer months, the demand is not there, and they are now adjusting their guidance for the end of the year, believing that travel has softened really quickly. This is really great news for you because why? That spending on travel and leisure is causing a lot of problems for this U.S. economy. What are the problems? One, people are running up big credit card debt. Number two, it's causing a lot of inflation because travel and leisure is part of the CPI. Number three, it was causing some element of wage inflation, but not a lot. And number four, it was creating a lot of instability in this economy. If travel and leisure settles down, that is a great development for you tonight. But one of the parts of this equation that's really not good is the housing. Housing refers to renters. And the latest CPI tonight, again, the headline numbers show that inflation was up 7.1% year to date, showed that rent was still up 7% year to date. Housing is too hot, folks. Rent is too hot. There's too much inflation in the rent, which means the landlords are charging 7% more for rent than they were last year, that tenants reportedly are able to pay it, and the Federal Reserve has not been able to get those landlords to reduce that number. The 7.1% is higher than the prior month of October. Big problems, and that's why you have to get all those incredible stimulus checks. Let's look at those big stimulus checks right now. Stimulus checks at issue tonight also include the numbers for people who rent. And there's incredible stimulus checks started in the month of March when Joseph Biden came around and passed a series of executive actions establishing the first three checks, A, B, and C. Those first three stimulus checks add up to $100,000. You qualify. If you are a single individual and you make $75,000 or less annual income, you qualify. If you're a married couple and you make $150,000 or less, you qualify. Go get these incredible stimulus checks. I'm going to go over checks A, B, and C in just a second. Then came Congress, and they passed more checks. Those incredible checks are checks E through K, and they're featured in the membership newsletter, and that's where you apply. You also apply in the membership newsletter for L&M, N&O, P, and Q. I found you those checks, and again, that newsletter is delivered from me to you, 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern, via the YouTube alert. Watch for that YouTube alert, exactly on the money, delivered from me to you. Go down the alert, past the guy with the surfboard, there he is, click the link, and go right and apply. It's that straightforward. We'll go over all these hundreds of checks in this recording, one at a time. But first, let's go back into the breaking news we're dealing with right tonight. The fact that housing has not cooled down at all, the fact that inflation is so hot with this housing data is very troubling. And that is something that Jay Powell will have to address tomorrow. I'll go over the latest details of what I believe Jay Powell needs to do to get this inflation under control. And if he doesn't, we're going to be doing this for a long time. It's coming up in the big second half. But first, today was the countdown to a major developing detail tomorrow. And that major developing detail tomorrow is the potential start of the Santa Claus rally. Will it start or will it not start? Won't start. I'll have the breaking news on that in just a second. But let's go get some incredible stimulus checks. A $6,500 stimulus check to $12,000 stimulus check is check A. That's the first stimulus check we're going over right now. Single individual, $75,000 less, go get them. Married couple, $150,000 less, go get them. And how do you get them? Step one, go under this video, subscribe. Go under this video, like the video, and share it with your friends and neighbors. Tell people to come on over and start watching LALATE. Then go under the video and make sure you have the bell set to all notification on. And finally, become a member. Go down in the membership newsletter and apply for those checks. Where do I apply for the checks? In the newsletter. At check A, you click the link and it sends you right into the application. Choose your state and apply. You're not done there yet. You're going to apply for check B. How do I apply for check B? In the newsletter. Where is the newsletter? It's delivered via me to you via YouTube alerts, exactly on the money at exact time. You need to know your time zone. If you're in the Midwest, you're 9 o'clock. If you're on the East Coast, you're 10 o'clock. If you're on the West Coast, it's 7 o'clock. At exactly that moment, you get the YouTube alert. You go down the YouTube alert, past the guy at the surfboard, click the link, and it sends you the newsletter. You go down the newsletter after check A and apply for check B. And check B is the check that has delivered big sums of money. Viewers are averaging about 18 months of stimulus checks, 5 per month, $3,000 a month for these incredible check Bs. This is why viewers are walking away with tens of thousands of dollars of stimulus. You're not done there yet. You're going to go get check C. Check C is for your rent, utilities, and mortgage assistance. Now, in the newsletter at check C, it's going to tell you the 12 places you reach out to, what to say, and how to say it. Now, let me make this very clear, because I've been doing check C's on this channel for nearly 2 years. Check C, you want to reach out to all 12 places. Do not reach out to one, reach out to all 12. You're going to get a no, but you're also going to get a yes. And that is why it's absolutely incredible. It's for rent, utilities, mortgage assistance, and more. Let's go down into the incredible success stories that viewers have had for that incredible check C, and you can have these success stories as well. Do you want $30,000 of rent? Then go get some incredible check Cs. Do you want $15,000 of utilities? Then go get some incredible check Cs. How do you join this channel? Under the video, join the channel, become a member, and get these incredible check Cs. Check Cs have been gotten by viewers of this channel since over a year, and you deserve these sums of money. Here we go. Congratulations to Lynn Glenn, who recently got 14 months of utilities, then 12 months of rent, then suddenly turn around and help her family member also get 12 months of utilities as well. Here's Mark, he was at $50,000, he went to $100,000, then $166,000 of stimulus checks. Lorraine, I got at $105,000 stimulus checks. She went to $155,000 of stimulus checks. So let's recap where we are so far in this path. We have first done the first 3 stimulus checks, A, B, and C. How do I get the stimulus checks? First, who gets the stimulus checks? You get the stimulus checks. The stimulus checks are for the federal government. They're for all Americans. They are not for a city. They're not for a state. They're not for a county. They don't care where you live. They're from the federal government for all Americans. And these incredible stimulus checks, you need to pounce to get them. If you don't pounce, you don't get paid. And how do you get paid? You go down in the membership newsletter. And then where is that newsletter? Let's recap that again. Delivered from me to you, 7 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Central, like Missouri and Illinois, and 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, like New York and New Jersey. You get an alert. That alert from YouTube says, here's the newsletter. Go down the alert, past the guy with the surfboard, click the link, and go right and apply for these checks in the newsletter. It's very important you listen to the recording and do exactly what the recording says. That's why I repeat it over and over throughout the day in all the recordings. You follow exactly, you get paid. But that's just the first 3 checks. In the big second half, we're going to continue these incredible checks one at a time. We're going to go with those incredible checks E through K. And then we'll go to the other stimulus checks I found for you. But more importantly, I'm going to go over why has inflation not come down, and what does J-Powell really need to do to get inflation down. You've never seen this before. You're never going to see this potentially anywhere else. It's only on LA. I'll give you what J-Powell or someone in the administration needs to do to get inflation down, and that would solve it. And moreover, we'll compare inflation to a recession in the big second half as well. It's a big show, and it's just getting started. Remember, this week is a big week. Tomorrow's day 1 of 2 days for the Federal Reserve's December FOMC meeting. Jay Powell's likely to say 50 basis point increase for December. But will he give guidance for the next few months? He's likely not, but he's also not going to go lower than 50 basis point come January, February. And then on Thursday, we look to see the latest unemployment numbers. Where are they tonight? Not good. The long-term unemployment numbers are the highest we've seen this entire year at 1.6 million claims. These are long-term unemployment people. So we want to see that number drop, but it's likely not because Jay Powell wants to raise the number. Then on the 14th of December, we try to see if the markets trade up because that is the 10th trading day of the month of December, which historically is the start of the Santa Claus rally. The Santa Claus rally is a very critical rally in which the markets go up for the end of the year before they go down in January. They go up in a recession. They go up in a bear market. But will they go up this year? A lot of people are betting against it not going up. Of course, tonight is confusing because today we started up a lot, then negative, and we ended up at least 100 points. So that was good. We'll have more about these incredible details in the big second half, continue with these huge stimulus checks. It's a big show for the Purple Hawks. I hope you've become a Purple Hawk, and welcome to the nearly 100 new members to this channel. Plus, I have a commentary of what you should expect later tonight on this channel, because we have some fun coming up later tonight on the show on this channel as well. From the shores of Santa Monica, California, we're just getting started on a big, bold, beautiful night from the shores of Santa Monica, California. See you back in 60 seconds. If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join LALATE Daily for the excitement of the new LALATE live daily. The excitement starts on mornings LALATE at 9 a.m. Home LALATE returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons LALATE at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on LALATE. And the excitement continues right now in the big second half of Evenings LA, America's most loved show for financial news in prime time. Thank you for becoming part of this incredible channel. And making news tonight is that insanely confusing CPI number. We'll jump more in that details in just a second, but let's go right into the breaking news of those big, bold, beautiful stimulus checks. Massive stimulus checks, $300,000 of stimulus checks that have been law since March. Been law since March. Viewers have been paid since March. And how do you get paid? You go under the video, become a member, get that newsletter, and apply for these incredible checks. What are the incredible checks? We're going to go over each of those incredible checks one at a time in the big second half. Again, 18 months of stimulus checks, $300,000 of stimulus checks, 5 checks per month, 3 months, $3,000 of checks per month on average, and 18 months of checks on average heat up this big second half. From the shores of Santa Monica, California, good evening, and let's continue with the breaking news starting right now from the shores of Santa Monica, California. Happy holidays, and thank you for joining me across the board. And make sure you stay with me throughout the night on this channel, Evenings LA, every night at 5 o'clock. Evenings Countdown at 6 o'clock. Stream Stimulus at 7. 8 o'clock is Extra. 9 o'clock is Sunset. And that's on Channel 1. Channel 1 also has LALATE Live that starts every night at about 6 p.m. On Channel 2 is Stimulus Live, and on Channel 3 is Wall Street Live. Let's go to the continuation of those incredible stimulus checks. Check E. A $7,500 stimulus check. Love it. It's down the membership newsletter at Check E. Go apply in the newsletter. Check F, a $4,000 stimulus check. Check D, 30% off. Check H, a $2,000 stimulus check. Then check I, an $8,000 stimulus check. Check J, an $8,000 stimulus check. And then check K, a $14,000 stimulus check. You apply for these stimulus checks at Check E through K in the newsletter. Let's continue to checks L and M. These are the ones I found for you after Congress. Check L is $100,000 an average of loan interest-free money for the purchase of your first home, and M is a $4,000 grant that goes with it. Then N, incredible. Brand new tablet, brand new computer, brand new laptop, and free internet for the holidays? Yes, go get it. It's Stimulus N. In the newsletter, go apply and get that very quickly. And then Stimulus O, 0 down payment, 0 closing costs, and no mortgage insurance required. And then Stimulus P, 3% down and $8,000 stimulus check to go with it for a refi. Incredible. Let's go over a little bit more about these federal stimulus checks. Also be answering some of your questions I saw on the channel in the last 24 hours. Thanks for posting your comments. Remember to always share the videos. Tell people on social media, come on over. Tell your friends and family, come on over. Word of mouth and help grow this incredible family across the board. These stimulus checks are from the federal government. Because it's for the federal government, they're for all Americans. They are not from your state. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what city you're in. They're not for the city. They're not from the county. They're not from the state. It doesn't matter at all where you are. These are from the federal government. They're big checks, upwards of $300,000 of checks. How many checks? About 300 different checks. And what is the largest stimulus check? 100,000. What is the smallest stimulus check? 8,000. What's the fastest time to get paid any stimulus? Well, Johnny started on Monday, and by Wednesday, he had $45,000. By Friday, he continued. He applied for 15 stimulus check applications. He got half rejected, half approved, $80,000 of stimulus checks. The next week, he helped his mom. She got 50,000 stimulus checks. Dad, $50,000 of stimulus checks. And then he helped his 20 friends and neighbors get $250,000 of stimulus checks. What are these stimulus checks for? For everything you want. The rent, the utilities, the mortgage assistance, the home improvements, the home appliances, the car, the computer, the internet. It's absolutely wonderful stimulus. Go get these big stimulus checks. Again, they're from the federal government. They've been lost since the month of March, and you need to pounce to get these incredible stimulus checks. Do something and get a lot. Now let's continue with these incredible stimulus checks by going over to inflation relief stimulus checks, ISCs. I for inflation, but also for icing on the cake because they're not particularly that big. They're about $1,000. They're down the membership newsletter, check D, go down to newsletter, check D, click the link. It tells you the state, the amount, and how to track it. Then finally, lifetime stimulus. Because once your benefits go up, they never go down. How much is your benefits check going to be? Let's go over all the calculations of this right now. And it starts with the prior month. Let's look at last month. The month of November, you got a check if you're on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, and railroad benefits. That check was 5.9% higher than last year. So your current check is 5.9% higher than the prior year of 2021. What happens on January 2023? You'll get an 8.7% lift raise on top of your current raise of 5.9%. That will continue all throughout 2023. Then on January 2024, you'll get another raise because we'll have another year of inflation, and that will continue that year. And then finally, in January 2025, you'll get another raise, and that will continue for that entire year. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. By the year 2025, you'll have the largest check of a generation, which will never go down because once your benefits go up, they never go down. And the cost of living will be back to the lowest level of a generation. Items will be the cheapest for you to purchase ever of a generation. And that will happen the same time that you'll have the biggest check of a generation. It's incredible, great news. And with that, let's go back into what we're looking to see tomorrow and what we're looking to see this week in a very, very tumultuous week of breaking news. Tomorrow starts day one of a 2-day December FOMC meeting of Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve, and where the Federal Reserve will announce their interest rate spike for the month of December 2022. It's going to be likely a half basis point. But here's where it gets interesting. Will the Federal Reserve give us any guidance for the future months? Highly unlikely, no, but the Federal Reserve is likely to say the following words because they said it before. Inflation is cool, they're likely to say, which is correct, and that they need to stay the course, which they said before, and they need to get inflation to 2%, which they said before. Again, we are at 7.1% tonight. We got to go to 2%. How much have they achieved so far? They barely achieved 1 percentage point in 12 months. Now, does that worry you that in 1 year we've only got inflation down 1 percentage point and we need to go 5 more percentage points next year or the next 2 years? It could worry a lot of people, but I'll explain to you in a second what Jay Powell needs to do. The question is whether he's going to do it. Now, here is what's at issue. Will the markets react positively to Jay Powell's news or not, negatively? Historically, if you watch this channel this year, Jay Powell, whenever he speaks at the FOMC meetings, the markets are up that day. And the next day, they're down. So that would be interesting because why is that important? Tomorrow is December 14th. December 14th is the 10th trading day of the month of December this year. And the 10th trading day of the month of December is what historically starts the Santa Claus rally. What is the Santa Claus rally? A very critical rally in which the markets go up every December. You need that rally because January is usually a very negative month. You need a Santa Claus rally. And it happens even when there's a bear market and even when there's a recession. But a lot of people are worried it's not going to happen if the markets negatively react to Jay Powell's news. You and I might be lucky. Here's my prediction. I think we're going to get lucky because I believe the markets generally trade up when Jay Powell speaks, which is the same day, the 14th and the 14th. Now, he does speak on the 15th, but they generally trade down the next day. So it lines up pretty well. We're keeping our fingers crossed that we get a rally up with the markets on the 14th, which then brings us to the big question mark of inflation. Jay Powell had 8% inflation in December last year. In fact, in February 2021, I said that the U.S. economy was going to suffer an 8% inflation in December 2021 and was not going to go away. It was going to be temporary, transitory. How did I know that when I said that? Because at the time it was being caused by two factors: supply chain disruption and higher gas prices. Higher gas prices and supply chain disruption, which is the inability to get the products from the merchant, from the factory, or from the farm to you cheaply. Well, here's where it's getting interesting tonight, folks. Supply chain disruption should be gone. Supply chain disruption should be gone because there's no indication that shipping costs or freight costs are like what they once were. So those elements of supply chain disruption should no longer be causing inflation in this economy. And by on occasions, that's actually true. Number two, gasoline is down. Gasoline International Brent crude tonight is the lowest feature on this channel this entire year. It's $80 a barrel. Remember, it was $110 when Putin invaded Ukraine. It went all the way up to $120 a barrel this year on this channel. It's at $80. And the US AAA national average is down at $320 something. So the two factors which started inflation for this economy last year are gone. So the next question is if the two factors which caused inflation are gone, why do we still have inflation? And what would I do to solve the inflation? What should Jay Powell do to solve inflation? And what should the administration in White House, the Biden administration, do to solve inflation? Number one, what I believe the administration of the White House should do immediately is call a congressional hearing with the airline companies. The airline companies. Here's the problem. The airline companies featured on this channel extensively over the last 2 years were in Washington, D.C. during the first stimulus package and during that second stimulus package with their hand out, asking for money, asking for millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars, I think in some cases, of federal stimulus. And they got it. They got the money, but they didn't particularly use the money it was supposed to be used for. They said they were going to go under if they didn't get money. Guess what they used it for? Pensions and things like that. Here is where it gets interesting. Where it gets interesting tonight is that the airlines are doing amazing numbers. Their revenues are way up. Their stocks are way up. They're making a lot of money. But let's look and see how much inflation the airlines are enduring to run their operation. And then let's look at how much inflation they're giving to us. The airlines are based upon jet fuel. Is the jet fuel still high? No, it's not, folks. The jet fuel is the lowest it's been in the entire year. So the cost to run a plane is cheaper than it's been the entire year when you look at jet fuel. Next question mark. What about the wages? The wages for the airlines are not up substantially. 1%, half a percentage point. They're not up 20% the wages. They're not doing that. So is there any particular cost that is making the airlines so expensive? Those airline tickets so expensive? No. Airline fares, and the latest CPI released tonight shows that airline fares in the month of November 2022 were up 36% compared to the prior year of November 2021. Make sense? No. Why are airline fares up 36% if the jet fuel is as cheap as it was last year, if the salaries are about the same as they were last year, If the cost to operate a plane is about the same as it was last year, why are the airlines charging us as consumers, as unionized businesses, the airlines, why are they charging us 36% more for airlines? If I was in the administration, I'd immediately pull those airlines in for a congressional hearing. I don't believe the prices of the airline flights are justified. Now, here's obviously what you're going to say, but people are paying it. Absolutely. People are paying for the airline flights. And until the people stop paying for these ridiculously overpriced airline flights, the airlines will keep on charging these 36% higher prices on airline flights. But that shouldn't be the point. The point is that when the airlines came to Washington for assistance, we helped them. Now we need help in ensuring the airlines do normal pricing. They're not. They're really overpricing at 36% higher than last year for no other reason that there's a lot of demand for travel. Now, the next part of the equation is the rent. The rent is a real big problem. The rent is the landlords, private individuals who own apartment buildings, and they are charging 7% more on the rent than they were last year. Is there anything J-POW can do to get private landlords, apartment owners to charge less money for rent? Not particularly, no. If most landlords have owned the apartment buildings pure straight out cash and are not owning the apartment buildings on debt, or their debt is fixed, like a 30-year fixed mortgage at 3% from 2 years ago, then whatever J-POW is doing does not impact the landlords whatsoever. The landlord's costs of operating the apartment buildings is utilities and a little bit of overhead and property taxes, which are not particularly that dramatically different. And there's nothing particular that J-POW can do to get those landlords to get those prices of rent down. Here's the problem. If J-POW has no way to get the landlords to reduce the price of rent, and the rent is 30% of the CPI, and that rent is really massive inflation, then we could have this problem for inflation very long time, if there's no solution at hand. You see the problem? The problem is that if 30% of inflation is coming from the landlords and the price they're charging you as the tenant, and there's no way to get those landlords to stop raising those prices of rent, and the renters are paying the rent, then the problem is that we'll still have inflation. J-POW will continue to raise rates, and the landlord will continue to raise the rent. And we'll still have the same problem a year from now. Big problem. Here's another way to look at it. The fact that rent is 30% of inflation, that means you need 70% of the rest of inflation to come down even more dramatically. 30% of inflation is rent, and that is straight through the roof. So you need at least 30% of the rest of the CPI to come down a lot to offset these higher rent prices. Where is it? Smartphone prices? Not that many people are buying smartphones compared to people renting. I mean, smartphones are down 23%, rent is up 7%. Yeah, that is an offset, but there's the volume of purchases of smartphones versus renters is not a really big offset. Television sets down 17%. That's good, and car rentals. But you really need a lot more. What do you need? Eggs, milk, pet food. You need big items that everyone buys, like lettuce. You need those items down 7% to offset the rent up 7%. You can't have butter up 34% and lettuce up 20% and pet food up 16% and the rent is up 7%. You're not going to win with inflation. You gotta, if you see that the rent is the big problem and there's no way to get the landlord to cut the rent prices because they're just doing it, then you need to get another set of items to offset that 7%. And we're just not pulling it in. We're not pulling it in. In fact, when you look at the numbers that dropped today, was anything down 7%? Major appliances, no, 1%. Down. Used cars, no, only down 3%. Computers, down 4%. No. Beef and veal, no, down 5%. Car rentals, no, down 6%. Televisions, not that many people are buying televisions because that's versus renters, down 70%, and smartphones, 23%. If you got a couple more of these negative 23, 24, maybe negative 30 numbers, that would help offset this problem with the rent. But until you do that, you can't get the inflation down. If you don't get the inflation down, what happens? We still have inflation. And J-POW keeps on raising those rates. Now, here's what's also important to remember is that inflation has nothing to do with recession. Recession and inflation are two different beasts. And in 30 days from now, recession starts. In 30 days from now, recession starts, which will mean that the economy will shrink. The economy will shrink based upon the demand. Now, tomorrow we have a series of data points that are coming in that are so critically important. Actually, not tomorrow, the day after. The long-term unemployment claims. You don't see that number keep on growing because Jay Powell is going to really make it go a lot higher next year. And it will go a lot higher next year when businesses lay off. The month of December is not posing to be a very good month for retailers. You want retailers to make money. If retailers don't make money, what do? They lay people off. If they lay people off, what happens? People start going under. They default on things. And you don't want that to happen anytime soon. So you want to have the retailers stable. You want to have you want to have the rent come down. There's a lot to do here. And just raising interest rates doesn't particularly fix it. Finally, tonight, let's recap a couple things because it's so important when you're watching this channel to understand that I cover everything in a recording. Everything is covered in a recording, so you know absolutely everything by the time of the recording. That's why it's always important to watch the entire recording from beginning to end. Number one, stimulus checks. When will I get a stimulus check? You will get a stimulus check if you apply for it. You need to pounce. You need to pounce like a purple hawk. If you do nothing, you get paid nothing. That's the state of current stimulus. That was the state of the very first stimulus. And you need to pounce right away because the stimulus is there right now. It may not be there indefinitely. Number two, how do I get the stimulus? Step one, becoming a member. Okay, now I'm a member. Where do I apply for the stimulus checks? Please listen carefully. To apply for the stimulus checks, you open the newsletter. To apply for the stimulus checks, you apply in the newsletter. Now, where is the newsletter? Please listen to this carefully as well. You need to know your time zone. This is a very basic element, but it's very important. A lot of people mess this up. What time is your time zone in? If you are the West Coast, you're on the Pacific Standard Time. You're my time zone. If you're the East Coast Standard Time, you're on the East Coast Standard Time. And if you're in the Midwest, you're in Central Standard Time. 7 o'clock my time, Pacific Standard Time, is not 7 o'clock New York time. It's 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Central Standard Time versus my time. The newsletter is delivered from me to you 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, like New York and New Jersey, and 9 o'clock Central Standard Time, like Missouri and Illinois. Finally, when applying for stimulus checks, make sure you reach out to all the places and make sure you remember that this is federal stimulus. It's not from your state. It has nothing to do with your state. You need to pounce really quickly. You need to listen very carefully. And it's important to understand that in a particular recording, I cover it all. Everything is answered in the recording. So there's no need for you to ask people in the live chat, where do I apply for the stimulus checks? He already said in the video 5,000 times. It's in the newsletter. You don't need to ask people simple questions like, I reached out to Arizona in one place. They're going to respond to you, no, you reach out to all the places, not one place. You need to do exactly as what's detailed in the video, not a version of it. Don't take it and do your own version of it because it won't work. I've been doing this a while and you've been doing this a while. And that's why we're winning as a wonderful family. Big week and we're just getting started. Tomorrow the Federal Reserve meets for that 2-day FOMC meeting. We'll have the breaking news on it as it happens. Then we have on the 14th, the start of the Santa Claus rally, hopefully. On Thursday, we have the new unemployment claims and the long-term unemployment claims, a very critical number. And we'll see a little bit more about the reaction to the markets to this news that is otherwise predictable, but the reaction is not. From the shores of Santa Monica, California, join me tonight through all three channels. And don't forget our very new hit show. It's called LA Late Night. It's on Channel 1, and it's at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on the set, but with a cell phone. It's very informal. I go off the cuff. I say things I would not normally say on broadcast video. I give you a lot of opinions, and I answer your questions in that live chat. From the shores of Santa Monica, California, stay informed, stay focused. Keep on getting everything you're getting, and keep on doing everything you're doing so well. I'm so proud of you, and you should be proud of yourself. Stay informed, stay focused, and stay with LA for more.